All right, it is February 11th, 2026 at about 2:17 in the afternoon. I'm sitting here waiting for my wife to get out of class. And, I just started thinking about how, I went back to school in my late 30s. My wife is the same age as me, but she's a little further along in her school journey. She's already in grad school, but we both kind of did the same thing. We both kind of started school later in life. I went to college straight out of high school for a little while and majored in theater. Did a bunch of theater classes and performances and stuff like that, and it was really cool. It was actually I had a lot of fun, but I was kind of fending for myself back then, so I kind of had to work and kind of like support myself back then. So college at the time, just wasn't really for me. I didn't have the stability to continue pursuing a degree. And, honestly, I wasn't even ready. I wasn't ready for college back then. I was in party mode still. And, it is being young in your 20s, your early 20s or whatever, how you just want to do whatever. But yeah, that's where I was. That's where I was in my early 20s. I was kind of just like, I was all over the place, trying to support myself, trying to pay rent with some roommates and stuff like that. And, it was pretty hectic. So I ended up not going anymore. And I lived life. I grew, went through some challenges, went through some relationships, ended up getting married, raising kids and everything. And, later on in life, I decided around COVID, it was literally just after COVID, 2021, I decided I was going to go back to school. I went back to school and I started my general ed, but being an older student and having responsibilities, having work and kid stuff, kid activities and stuff like that, PTA, spending time with my wife and kids and all of that. I didn't go full time. So I didn't have enough time to go full time. So I took a class here and there. And, it was kind of weird going back at first because everybody was basically the age of my kids. My kids were just getting out of high school. Two of the older kids are just getting out of high school. One is still in high school, but it was kind of weird. It was pretty weird because I didn't know how people were going to react. I didn't know how I was going to be accepted going back to school, especially at community college. Community colleges are, you see a lot of the younger crowds fresh out of high school, usually the ones that didn't get accepted to a UC or a Cal State right away. So they're usually pretty fresh, very little life experience and stuff like that. So I was kind of nervous. I was like, man, this is kind of weird going back to school and I'm a little older. Didn't know how my professors were going to react and stuff like that. But it was quite the opposite. It was quite the opposite. My wife, she went to university recently. She graduated from a university. And I used to take her to school there as well. So that campus was a lot more mature. There was more students that were older, and there was grad students as well. So there was a lot of people in my age group that, I would see on campus. So I didn't feel as awkward as I felt at a community college, going into class and, seeing everybody just so young. I was like, wow, it really makes you feel old. I'm not that old. I'm really not that old. I'm in my late 30s, but I'm not old. I don't feel old. I thought late 30s was ancient when I was younger. When I was, 18, 19, I thought that was just like, oh my God, you might as well be planning your funeral because you're old as dirt. But, as I got older, I feel like, 30, late 30s is not old at all. And, it is actually a great opportunity to go back and to do something with your life. If you want to change careers already or whatever, it's actually a great time to do that, to go back to school and to change careers and, get some training. Um, I feel like I still have my whole life ahead of me. I feel like, you know, that I feel like I'm still young and I still have so much life, so much that I can do. Like I said, I used to think that, late 30s was just ancient, but now I know that, like, I'm not that old. I'm really not that old. So, going back into school, like I said, seeing all the younger crowd, I was like, wow, it felt really awkward. But then, I did find people that were my age. And actually, I did have some classmates that were older in some of my elective courses. Most of my general ed, I did have a lot of the older crowd, the younger crowd. But when it came to elective courses and language courses, you did see a lot of like people my age and older that were just back in community college to, maybe just learn a language or just learn whatever that elective was. So that was kind of cool that, I didn't feel super old in those classes or whatever. But in the general ed classes, I do feel, like the older one. But I do have to say that it was not what I expected. So I didn't get, nobody cared. Nobody cared that I was an older student. Nobody actually commented or anything like that. My professors and everything like that. Nobody cared. Nobody really cared. It was all just in my head, So I just took the class like everybody else. It was a normal class. I did feel as though being an older student and communicating with my professors, if I did get behind because of, family stuff, I felt like my professors respected that and they were a little more lenient on me because of it, because they knew I wasn't just messing around and partying and trying to get an extension just because I was being lazy or I was out all night and, didn't want to do the assignment. So they understood where I was coming from. They understood that, I do have a life, that school wasn't my entire life, even though I wanted it to be so I could hurry up and get done with it. I was only taking a class here and there. So, they got it. They completely understood. So like I said, they were a little more lenient when it came to deadlines. I wasn't the type of person that was like always asking for an extension. I was usually the type of person, which is the complete opposite of high school and everything else. I was the type of person that would get my work done as soon as possible, just to turn it in and just to not have to think about it anymore. So my professors did appreciate that. They did appreciate that I was, getting my work on time and asking for feedback and trying to fix whatever it was that I can fix, right then and there before the deadline. So, like I said, when it did come time to ask for extensions, I wasn't denied. I was usually given the extension, and then I would do my work and take care of it. I do gotta admit, being an older student and having a lot of life responsibilities, I did have to withdraw from a lot of classes. So these past few years that I've been in school, like I said, since 2021, I want to say like 5 years now, I've been at this, and slow and steady wins the race. But I did have to drop quite a few classes throughout the journey because life just got super busy. I had to deal with, my kids and their activities and working full time and trying to go to school and trying to just accommodate everybody. It's tough. It's tough being, the head of the household and trying to do all of that and going back to school. So my transcripts aren't perfect at all. But I do have to say that I did take the time to clean up my transcripts and get some academic renewal and stuff like that, so that I'm pretty much at the point of where I can graduate community college and go to UC or Cal State. I did choose. I was supposed to graduate this year, this spring, but I did decide to spread out my classes. My last semester, I did decide to spread it out, so I am going to graduate next year. Um, Technically still this year, but it's considered next academic year. I am going to graduate later than expected, even though I wanted to get out of school. I wanted to just be done with it and move on to the next chapter in my life. I decided that slow and steady does still win the race. So I didn't want to rush. I've transitioned back and forth from major to major to major to major because I was super indecisive what I actually wanted to do with life, because, we are in the brink of AI, and AI is taking over a lot right now. So that did play a factor in what I wanted to do with life, but I finally decided on what I was going to do. Um, and yeah, I just pushed forward. I recently just changed my major once again and decided to change it back because the new major that I was planning was just going to keep me at El Camino for probably like another 2 years because it was very hard and lengthy major. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to stick with my major. I'm going to complete something. I'm not going to keep changing it and keep being indecisive. I'm going to be decisive, stick with what I started, and just be done. And just be done. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at right now with everything. I'm pretty excited to transition into the Cal State or UC system and, begin the next chapter of life. Like I said, I still have 2 more semesters here at school because I'm only taking a couple classes per session. I'm not taking winter and summer classes. I'm only doing main semester classes because I also decided that I'm going to take breaks. I've been trying to cram every bit of my schedule, I've just been trying to do as much as possible in the least amount of time. So I've been overloading myself. I've been spreading myself super thin, and I've came to the realization that being an older student, I can't spread myself so thin. I have to understand that this is a journey, it's not a destination. I have to focus on being okay in the moment and just, taking my time with this, not rushing because I feel like, I'm running out of time or whatever, but I am just going to go slow and just move forward. And however long it takes me, it takes me. I'm not going to rush. I'm not going to be stressed out unnecessarily over deadlines and overwork myself along with everything else I have going on. So, going back to school in your late 30s is manageable. It's doable. You don't have to go full time. You don't have to stress yourself out with a million classes and trying to do everything right and trying to get a great GPA. Community college is pretty easy, actually. Now that I am an older student, I do have a lot of wisdom, and I am coming back to school in a different mindset and a different mentality. I'm actually in a place in my life where I want to learn these things. I want to learn whatever it is I'm learning at the time, and that just completely changes the game. So, if you're thinking about going back to school in your late 30s, early 40s, or even 50s, anything like that, I would say yes. I would say do it. I mean, what? There's no harm, no foul. Like you're not gonna hurt yourself from going back to school at an older age or whatever. Like there's nothing that can go wrong. Like there's nothing that can you're not really taking a risk at anything. I mean, taking a class here and there, even while if you're a working professional or whatever and you just want to change careers, taking a class here and there is manageable. It's doable. I mean, if you're thinking about it, just do it. Just do it. And, I will keep documenting where I'm at in this phase of my life. And, we will just see where it goes. That's all I'm going to do. We're just going to see where it goes. And yeah, I'll see you in the next entry.